So, next is lecture outline. No, I'll give you the course outline. This course outline is going to be changed slightly, so I'll give you an up-to-date version later in the course, but it's a very thorough one, and it's not going to change in terms of the topics over the next 24 weeks. I'm sorry they're not stapled. Today's very introductory, so don't worry if you're thinking it's very disorganised. Are you excited? Really?
No. Yeah.
I'll soon change that, don't worry. I'll soon just... No. Media is really exciting at the moment. It's a very... it's a cliche, but media is just too powerful right now. It's become... Media is politics in the world that we live in. I hope I've got enough, but I think I've got some more.
Should we bring this with us to every class?
The course outline, or the reading pack, no, bring that to the seminars on Wednesday.
Seminars are only on Wednesday.
Correct. Pass that along. Another one. The whole thing, all together. Pass them all along. That's it. Oh. We can talk in more detail about the course outline in the seminar this week. There isn't time today, so this is just for your reference. Okay. Now I'm going to distribute the lecture outline, which is called broadcast. Oh yes, this is a register, a sign-up sheet for attendance. So I'm going to pass it round. Just find your name. Let's just check. Perfect, everybody's here. And just sign your name next to your printed name. The good thing about digital technology is if you don't like the way you look, you just get rid of it. Edit it. Yeah? So if it's rubbish, I just throw it away. Right. Lecture outline. Two. 1, 2. If you don't mind, we'll still do an hour from now. Yeah? If you don't mind. If you have to leave earlier, it's fine. But as I say, every year I try to get... I do an ICC Undergraduate Foundations media lecture 1 hour, the hour before this one. And every year I try to say, can I have a gap? But no. So this is what I have to do to try to, separate two lectures. Four. Right, now we can start. Have you all met Jerry?
No.
Your language teacher. You'll meet him shortly. He's very, very good. He's been teaching media with me for quite some time. His medium is literature. But yeah, he's your language teacher. Okay, we can now begin the lecture formally. Oh, before we do that, there's always something else. This is going to be probably the key book for this course this year. It's called Media Studies Complete Introduction in the Teach Yourself series. I suggest that you get it. It's very, very good, and your language teachers will be using it as well. It's an overview book. As you can see in the course outline I've just given you, there's a long list of books which you don't have to read, all of them, but they are there if you need to draw on them. This, always students like a key course book. This is going to be the one this year. Okay? So I would recommend that each of you gets hold of a copy of this. Yeah?
If we have this one, do we have to do it?
That's a good one. I've used it before. There's nothing wrong with that one. This is more up to date.
Okay.
So unless you are very poor, I suggest you invest in this one. Okay?
Where can you find it?
It's not easy to find. It's a good question. I would order it online and get it sent to you.
Not on Amazon.
Hmm?
Not even on.
Look, God, you're so fast. Just do that later. Don't worry. Okay? There's plenty of time. Slow down. This is part of the thing about media. It's all about hype and speed and, selling.
Yeah.
So slow down. Let's slow down. Okay, I'm going to try and slow down. I need to. So you'll see in the course outline, what's the name of this lecture in the course outline? What does it say?
I'm sure one.
Yeah, what's the topic?
Broadcast.
Does it just say broadcast? Maybe I didn't change it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Let's stick with broadcast. What does broadcast mean? This word broadcast. It's made of two words put together. Broad, wide, cast, throw out, throw. Right? Very, very general, very, very historical, but extremely broadly speaking. We are now living in the 21st century, year 2018. The previous century, the 20th century, is often called the century of media, the media century. Why? We are talking about mass media. Mass media is broad media. Mass media is the development of technology, primarily in the West, by which political and commercial power can transmit and mediate a political message. Yeah? To thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people at the same time. So that's what broadcast means. So if we go through historically, key date, key year in the history of mass communication is 1895. Anybody know what was invented in 1895? No, sorry, wrong. It was later.
Is it the printing press?
No, wrong again, that was 1926. I mean, 26, when I say 1926, the invention of radio, I'm talking about not the actual technological discovery, that was earlier probably. I'm talking about the first BBC radio broadcast was 26. 1895 is cinema in France, the Lumiere brothers. This is even before Hollywood, right? So even before television, cinema was the mass medium, right? Cinema, 1895. With cinema came, as I said, the opportunity for power to broadcast to as wide an audience as possible. Usually at the beginning, historically, it was a national audience. Now we can talk about global audiences. Propaganda. Yeah, this keyword, propaganda. Basically, propaganda means a political message. Yeah? Let me give you a tiny bit of introduction to media theory. Another word, or the verb from media, is what? What's the verb from media?
mediate.
Okay. What's a synonym for mediate that begins with T and ends in the same? Trans. Right? Mediation is translation. When you produce a message, when you construct a message, when you create a message, you change the message. You translate it. Right? If you are the producer of the message in the 20th century, in early, let's just put it in very general terms. In early media theory, if you're the producer of the message, you're the subject. Yeah? The person who produces it, and the thing, or the people, or the country that you're reporting on, that you're mediating, that you're translating, is the object. Right? So the classical paradigm of mediation is that the subject mediates the object, right? Using technology, using cinema, using the camera. Right? Does that make sense? The separation of subject and object. The thing is, look at this camera here. This is partly why I do this in the first lecture, but I'm going to be doing it in every lecture. This camera is mediating reality. So when you watch back the images and the sound, are you all going to hear the same thing? And see the same thing?
No.
Why?
Because it's limited.
Because you, as the audience, as individuals, have the power to interpret, to translate my message in your way, which takes power away from me, if you like. So this is the old paradigm that the subject always has more power than the object. When the producer, when the BBC mediates the world, it's the BBC that has power, and the world is the object. Well, we have a new paradigm, and it's like this. The new paradigm talks about agency and structure. These are key words that I'm going to be coming back to on the course again and again and again. It's very important we understand this. So, what do we mean by agency and structure? This is called a Venn diagram. Instead of understanding the subject, the relationship between subject and object as being linear, we now live in a digital age post-internet where not only are we producers of the media, we are also receivers at the same time. It's a more complex model. So, if you're an agent, you're a producer, but the structure is how media power is distributed in the world. So we can say, and when we talk about political economy, later in the course when we talk about political economic approaches to the study of mass media, we can say that the media has a lot of power, doesn't it? Yeah? Because it changes our interpretation of reality. But that's the old model. Now we can individually, using the internet, make our own broadcasts or podcasts, and we can make our own subjective realities. Yeah? So what I'm arguing in today's lecture, and I'm going to take you through it point by point, historically, is that interestingly, the mass media in the last 100 years has evolved from this model to this model. Yeah? So we live in an age of media participation, interaction, intersubjectivity. This space that we're now in is intersubjective. It's not one or the other. It's not black or white anymore. This is not to say that broadcast media isn't really, really powerful traditionally, because we are talking about Hollywood production companies, we're talking about the BBC, we're talking about commercial news broadcasters like CBS, NBC, CNN, Fox News. They have a lot more power than you and I do to report the world, don't they? So we must not reject this model, but we must realise that the model is changing. What's interesting from a commercial perspective, when we understand the media world as a structure, the most powerful companies, corporations in the world today, it's no coincidence, are media companies. Who are they? Google? Pardon?
Is that media?
Apple, yes. Facebook, Microsoft, and the Chinese ones, Weibo, etc.,
Yeah.
etc., etc. Right? Because you've got such a massive audience right there. So it's interesting, isn't it, that it's not a coincidence that what's exciting about looking at the media today is that the most powerful companies in the world are media companies. But at the same time that we've got these powerful media companies, and Google's another one, we are also told that social media is giving power to us. We are told that. We need to think very carefully whether that's true or not. By the end of the course, you'll make up your own minds. I'm not going to tell you now. In fact, I'm never going to tell you what to think. I'm just going to tell you what to think about. Yeah, I'm not going to tell you that, the Marxist analysis of media is correct, or the pluralist, pro-capitalist one. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to compare them, and you can decide. So, go back to the lecture outline, broadcast television, 1895, invention of cinema. Let's just check that the camera is still working.
The red light's on.
Yeah, it's working. Okay, I'm going to talk, this will come up again in the course in a couple of weeks' time, but I want to talk about the BBC as the first provider of broadcast media. Yeah, so I said 1926 was the invention of radio. Then, this is the interwar period between 1918 and 1939. Television was the next mass medium that the BBC invented. And what's key about this historical period, it was a period in Western Europe of extreme political change and crisis between the First and the Second World Wars. So the BBC became the voice of the British government, reporting the conflict overseas, reporting the rise of Hitler, reporting propaganda, and so on and so forth. In the same way that the Germans, when they developed their own television broadcasting system, developed their own propaganda against the British, against the French. And then after that, after the Second World War, you have the Cold War. And the Cold War, the reason it's a Cold War, because there was no direct conflict. The conflict in the Cold War was a political, ideological conflict between capitalism, Western capitalism, and Eastern, so-called Eastern communism through the media. A war of information, a war of propaganda, a war. So this again, the Cold War between 1945 and 1990 could not have happened without the media. Yeah, it literally couldn't. That's why it was cold, right? It was a war of ideas, a war of information. So you can even go so far as to say this, and some people do, that wars can be started by the media and they can be prevented. That's how powerful the media is. That's why we should take it very, very seriously. So, let's talk about BBC. The BBC, when it arrived, let's say in the interwar period 1926 onwards, I'm talking about radio and television, there was no commercial competition. Advertising hadn't happened. Independent television hadn't happened. It was the only broadcaster, yeah? And the British people had never experienced. They'd only experienced cinema. They'd never experienced. So you have to imagine, it's like, that was really weird. And the BBC, started by a guy called John Reith, R-E-I-T-H, became an instrument of national consensus, building British identity. Yeah? So nationalism was a very, very key aspect of British broadcasting at the beginning of the inception of broadcast television in the UK. Public service broadcasting, please think about this word public, is to be contrasted with private. Public means not commercial. Private means commercial. Just think that's a very basic but important point. So, public service broadcasting, I don't know, I think in China you have CCTV,
Yes.
which I think is also public service broadcaster, am I right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. What is a public service broadcasting? Well, in BBC language, it has three main purposes, and they are to inform, information, to educate, education, and to entertain. Three main functions. If you take away the inform and the educate, then you have commercial broadcasting, because that's just entertainment, and we'll come back to that later. So the BBC was a very powerful instrument for broadcasting the voice of the British government. Now, I'm not saying that the British government's bad, especially as I'm filming this, they might get hold of it. But I am saying it gives them a lot of power, right? And it gives them power to be a national broadcaster. It gives you the power to represent the people to the people, in the same way that China does, and South Korea and the other countries that are represented here. Because, you know, what you are doing, and this is a very nice parallel between China and Britain. Forgive me, because hands up, how many of you are Chinese? Yeah. Hands up, don't be shy. Yeah, most of you, all right? It's not an exaggeration. So think about how important the media is in your country for constructing your national identity and for controlling the truth about what's going on inside your country and outside too. Yeah? It's a very powerful tool. So the whole point about the BBC, the whole point about broadcasting in the UK, but all over the world, is that it's an instrument of power of the state, the voice of the state, the voice of the government. It gives it the power to create reality, not just reflect reality. Yeah? So again, this model says that reality is out there and we can just film it and we can all agree what it is and there's no political differences. Right? This model says no. When you mediate reality, you politically change reality. There's no innocent way of being a broadcaster. Broadcasters exist. The idea of broadcasting exists for two main purposes: political power, commercial power. Yeah? The BBC is political power. I'm going to show you a clip now of a very famous British filmmaker, one of my favourite filmmakers, called Ken Loach. I don't know if anybody's heard of Mr. Ken Loach. Anybody heard of him? Okay. He was an independent filmmaker who became popular during the 1960s and 70s when politics in Britain was quite relaxed in terms of he was allowed to say what he wanted in a documentary politically. He was allowed to film and construct and reflect working class life, and then the documentaries that he made were broadcast to the British people. And in the clip that I'm about to show you where he's being interviewed, he says, in the 60s and 70s, he had much more political agency to say what he liked because the government didn't care. But now, in 2018, no agency. Yeah? So when the government is feeling confident, it gives power to the people to make their own broadcasts. When it's not, no broadcasts. That tells you about the purpose of broadcast television. Yeah, it's about power. So let's listen to what he has to say. He speaks a little bit quickly, but you should be able to, after all, your master's foundation students, you should have the level of English to get this.
Hello, from the British Academy of Film and Involvement in television credits. Many shows still
In refined variety acts come on position. Very.
The church was very...
For example, or the villages where Midsummer Murder
Doris
Yeah, I mean,
is seen by people.
Would you give it? There isn't this, you must know, a lot of resistance these films could have.
We were aware of the power of television.
With the more radical agenda. Joining me to discuss this, one of our foremost filmmakers responsible for some of television's most groundbreaking drama, Ken Loach. Writer, broadcaster, and former politician, Trevor Phillips, and multi-award winning screenwriter, Abby Morgan, whose television credits include Birdsong, The Hour, and most recently, River. Ken, in the 1960s you made films showing a side of Britain which had rarely been seen before. When you made them, were you aware of the power that these films could have?
We were aware of the power of television, I think, and I think we knew we were onto something. And we were at a point when drama was moving out of the studio onto the streets. So all that came together to tell contemporary stories. But I think it was a time when the ruling class was very confident. So they felt able to let...
So when he says the ruling class, he's talking about politics from a structural perspective, almost a Marxist perspective, I would say. So the ruling class is the government, it's the people with power. So he's saying power is separate from people, right? So in the 1960s, the government, the ruling class, the ruling class was confident, yeah? So it didn't worry about critical filmmakers. But today, it's very, very different. Yeah? So you can either agree with him and you can say, yeah, the BBC today, BBC reporting of the Iraq War in 2003 and so on, it's still about class power, keeping the ruling class in power. Or you can take a more, how shall we say, pluralist approach, less critical approach, which says, no, you are all free citizens now. If you don't like what the BBC says, go online and do your own blog. Yeah? That's the world. That's the debate. Who has more power, you or the BBC? I think we know the answer. Let's watch a little bit more.
To let these stories be told. When the ruling class is not confident, then the news tightens. You see that in wartime, you see it when there's industrial unrest, and you see it very much now when the society is then fractured and in conflict.
So when you did Cathy Camargo and Up the Junction and so on, was there much opposition? Did you say, you and Tony Garnett say, we want to do this, and with a bit of, well, Garnett was a heck of an operator, but even so, you got it through on your own terms?
Yes, the critical figure was Sidney Newman, who was head of drama, and he gave us the go-ahead to do contemporary fiction after the news, and we tried to make it indistinguishable from the news in a way.
So this is really a key point, and I'm going to explain it because it's quite difficult to understand the first time. He's just said that his main technique of representing drama is to use the news technique. So drama is fiction, isn't it? Yeah?
It is.
News is fact, right? Why would you use a news technique to make drama? Why would you do that? Well, the answer is simple. He tries to reflect the reality, keyword, of working class life, because if you look at BBC traditionally, it's all about powerful people, wealthy people. He's interested in showing real poor people's lives. Yeah? And what he says is this, and I agree with him. He says that the news doesn't just reflect reality, it makes reality. Therefore, if you are trying to show the reality of not powerful people, most of us are not powerful, then use the same techniques as news. Because news is designed to look like it's the truth. And that's what he does. The most famous film that he's made, which is a drama documentary, or even just a feature film really, is I, Daniel Blake. Yeah, check it out. It's an amazing film. He's done some amazing films. And it's all about social reality. Yeah? So he's saying two key points. Let me just summarize them. Number one, the whole purpose of broadcast television and radio is to provide the voice of the ruling class. Yeah? That's what it means. When we talk about news, we talk about the fact that the voice of the ruling class is objectivity. Objectivity. Yeah? So, the fact that you're the BBC and everybody believes your news programs automatically gives you a lot more power than you or I making our own news stories online. Yeah? So, that's a simple fact. I'm now going to continue the theme of public service BBC broadcasting, but we're going to change slightly from objectivity to, sorry, I've run out of space, I'm going low, objectification. And the verb from objectification is objectify. Yeah? It's not the same as objectivity. Objectification and objectivity are not the same, but they're very connected. They're connected through this simple word object, which we've already met. What does object mean? What did we say at the beginning? Did we say it? No, maybe we didn't. Maybe that was the other lecture. What's an object? Are you an object?
Something outside of yourself.
Exactly that. Something outside of ourselves. Could be a thing, could be a person, could be a country. Yeah? Could be a tree, could be, yeah? So when you are objectifying something, you are translating it into an object. Yeah? When you film, like I'm filming here, in a way I'm objectifying myself. I'm objectifying the lecture so that in the future when you watch this, that's what happened. Yeah? It's a fact. It's objectified. Now, one of the critical areas that we're going to visit on this course in the context of film, but in the context of media in general, is feminism. Right? One of the main techniques that advertising uses, but it's also in Western culture in general, is to, and it's a big topic in the media right now, look at American politics, is to objectify women. Men as the subject, women as the object. Right? That's a gendered cultural setup, isn't it? Right? So, when we objectify, as I said already, we are mediating reality to make everything that we represent into an object that does not represent itself. So us, or the BBC, let's just say the BBC while we're thinking about the BBC, the BBC has much more power because it's not representing itself, it's representing the other. Now, one of the things that the BBC is celebrated for in its public service broadcasting, maybe the biggest thing, arguably, is its wildlife documentaries. Yeah, its natural world documentaries. I'm sure you've all seen them. Have you? Yeah? they're pretty good, aren't they? They look good, they're spectacular, they're a bit Hollywoody, if that's not an academic word. They're very powerful. But what I'm going to argue now with a clip is that part of the problem with the way the BBC represents the world is that it is objectifying the world. Yes? It's saying, and it not only is it objectifying the world, it's representing the natural world as perfect, as not, well actually it's lying, because, and I'm sorry to have to say, that the beautiful natural world as we traditionally understand it is being destroyed by human beings, and we don't get that in the BBC representation of reality. Yeah? So it's using advertising techniques to make a false reality, to distract us from reality. Do we get global warming in these documentaries? Do we get the pollution of the seas? No. And this is what's really happening. So there's the problem, isn't it? Yeah? Let's watch a bit, and then we can talk about it a tiny bit more. Don't worry about the time. We're still going to do another half an hour, as long as that's okay with you guys. Yeah? I don't think anybody's waiting to come in, which is lucky. So this is called Planet Earth. Some of you may have seen it already. Just going to watch a few minutes, couple of minutes. Sound like?
A film?
Fiction.
Hollywood?
Yeah.
Star Wars?
Yeah.
Interesting. Using the same techniques. Yeah? To represent reality. We know that Star Wars is fiction. This is what Ken Loach is saying. It's the same techniques being used for fact to represent fact and fiction. Right, because I'm a pure Democrat, I'm going to give you the choice. Do you want pole-to-pole, mountains, or fresh water?
Fresh water.
Fresh water. Yeah.
Right there. Yeah? What are we looking at?
Seabirds.
One seabird?
Thousands of birds.
If you imagine that being human beings, not seabirds, what's the difference?
Gross.
Pardon? Gross.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Too many people crowded.
Why is that not gross, but human beings are gross?
They can fly and separate. And
Because human beings objectify nature. We are also creatures like that. We can also be seen as being like that. Right? This is a political technique to objectify nature. What you could do, and I can give you evidence of different styles of nature documentaries to support this, you could take one of these birds, yeah, and you could film that bird's life, and you could follow it, and you could get to know that bird, get to know its personality, get to know its difference from other birds, right? That's a big difference right there, right? So this is objectifying nature. It's not to say that it's bad. It's not to say that it's not beautiful. It's not to say that we don't like it. We like to be seduced by images, just like Hollywood. Yeah, when I say seduced, it's a sexual relationship with the image. It's pleasure. We'll be talking about this later. Beautiful images give us sexual pleasure, right? But it is having a political effect. And it's distorting and it's misrepresenting how nature is being destroyed by human beings, which I'll be coming back to later in the course when I talk to you about documentary in particular. There'll be a whole lecture on documentary. We'll just watch a tiny bit more. Also notice the camera. It's distant. Yeah? Whose point of view is the camera representing? It's us. We are up there with the camera. We are God. We can see the world can't see us. Big mistake. Yeah? That's objectivity. That's objectification. We are part of the world, we're not outside the world. This gives us the false consciousness that we're outside. There is no outside, guys. We're inside. Right? That's the power of mediation, translation, and so on and so forth. Okay? So far so good? I think that's probably the most difficult concept that I'm introducing today. So we're going to turn to part 3 of the course, Reality TV. So let's put on our historical thinking caps. We've done 1895, cinema, 1926. What happened in 26? Let's see if you were listening. Radio. What happened in the 1950s?
Television.
The invention of, well, television it was actually 30s, but commercial television, advertising in the 1950s. At the beginning of the Cold War. Is that a coincidence? I ask you. When did the Cold War end? 1990. Probably weren't born, some of you. I was. In 1990, that's when the internet arrived. So the Cold War, that was very much about this broadcast ideological competition between communism and capitalism. When the Cold War ended, we created a new conflict, the war on terror, through the internet. The other became Islam instead of communism, yeah, in propagandist terms. So, the most recent medium, mass medium, is the internet. But let me remind you, we are told that this medium, the internet, changes this mediation model into this one. We are told that the internet gives us more power than the old medium. Let's put it that way. Right, so we're talking about 1990. Let's stay in 1990. Before 1990, in commercial broadcast television, there were 2 very popular commercial genres, types of television. They were soap operas, dramas and crime series. Now they became very popular with audiences like you and I, and then they became popular with advertisers because advertisers made more money advertising their products next to soap operas and crime series. So you have to understand that the reason crime series and soap operas became popular is because they made more money, because you and I were watching them, not just because we like them. Our desire, what we like on television, is constructed by television. Yeah? And that leads us to reality television. Because reality television is the new genre of television that's actually designed by advertising. So traditional things like soap operas and crime series, they're made by television production companies. Reality TV is made to think, how can we make a kind of program that's really popular with young people like yourselves, so that we can make more money from advertising? Reality TV. What is reality TV? Why is it called reality TV? I don't know, because it's completely fucking constructed. Right? But we're talking about Big Brother, we're talking about X Factor, singing contests, and I can barely bring out the words. We're going to watch some, you can make up your own mind. Love Island. Have you seen Love Island? Yeah? It's the latest, most popular reality TV show in this country, but it's become an international, global phenomenon. Has anyone seen Love Island?
I'm ashamed I watched the whole season.
Well, you obviously did it for research purposes, didn't you? Yeah? So let's watch a little bit, and all I'm going to say when we watch a little bit of it, think about what I was saying earlier about these ideas of objectivity, objectification, and what is the object that we're looking at through the camera in Love Island? Why are these objects being shown in the way that they're being shown? Whose bodies and why would be another question. But look, I'm using YouTube to get this. That's social media. It's powerful, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a teaching resource. Oh, hang on. Uh-oh. Are you all over 18?
Yeah.
You sure?
Danny and Jack. Laura and Paul. All summer, the public have been obsessed by your every move. We've laughed with you, we've cried with you, but most of all, we've fallen in love with you. And now it's time to reveal the
Notice what she said. The public, that's you and I, have been obsessed with this program. Is that true? Is she reflecting reality or constructing reality?
Constructing.
But also partly reflecting it, because it was, well, according to the media, very popular. Who's got the power? We don't know. It might not be popular. We're just told it is, so we watch it. Who's got the power?
The winners of Love Island 2018 are Danny and Jack! Your Love Island winners 2018, how do you feel? I'm speechless. Wins portion.
This is actually boring.
Okay, Danny, please.
There's a better bit to show you. Let's show you this. This one I've seen. I used this before.
Good morning! Right, boys. It's been a pleasure. Bits have been done. And this is Aaron Jackson. This is Aaron Jackson. Wait, hang on. Yes. What was that?
Long live DPS.
Islanders, tonight you will all attend the Love Island 2018 Summer Ball. It's now time to brush up on your dance moves.
Where's this gonna put me to shame?
Josh hates salsa with a passion.
No, just concentrate.
I like chips and whack and salsa, that's about it.
Yeah, come on, move the legs. They're not stuck to the ground. Say no. Yeah,
That's it, really. They do that. They basically have to sort of have relationships with each other. We watch them. We in quotation marks, and we vote for who we like. We vote people off, and then they have a final and people win. And it's completely uneducational, uninformative, and 100% entertainment. And it's about, I'm just going to say what I think, and please disagree. I don't mind. In fact, I want you to. It's about promoting a particular kind of white, Western, young body. Right? Okay, there's some black people, African American origin. Yes, that's good in one particular sense, representation of race. But generally speaking, this is what's beautiful. This is how you should look.
Yes.
It's
Right?
also,
And if you don't look like that, tough luck.
it's also
Yeah?
very,
We're beautiful. Yeah? That's all it is.
it's really unequal with the women and the men too. There
Yeah.
was only one black girl the entire season, and there were a lot
That's
more
very
black men
significant.
as well.
That is definitely, when we talk about race and representation later in the course, that will come back. Yeah, and from a feminist perspective, clearly we've got the age-old problem of the objectification of the female body, but this is also men's bodies too now. Men worrying about their six-packs, about, etc., etc. That's also part of the culture. Why? Because this is advertising culture. This isn't anything else. This is promoting an ideal body, selling an ideal type body.
And also, every time they showed it, even on their online streaming service, they have stuff from Superdrug to promote fake tan, and
Yeah.
very specific products.
And it's promoting, and when we talk about advertising, we'll come back to this. There's 3 weeks in advertising. It's promoting image, look, over substance. Can you see the link with the previous clip? The beauty, the spectacular, but actually under the surface, nothing. Yeah? Stupid. Right? I mean, come on, they are. Really, generally speaking. Yeah? This is promoting Donald Trump type people. Yeah?
Yes.
Be proud to be stupid. Yeah? So, let's go to the last part of the lecture. And don't forget, I mentioned Donald Trump because he is the product of reality television. There's a deliberate connection right there. So, we've still got time. Now we're going to move on to the last section of the lecture, the end of an era. So era is a historical period. So we can argue, and it is argued in media circles today, that broadcasting as we understood it traditionally, according to this paradigm, is over because the internet has changed our relationship with reality. This is the birth of artificial intelligence and fake news and virtual reality. Reality TV is virtual reality, by the way. But how is broadcast changing? It's changing because it's changing our relationship with time and space, the internet. We can be anywhere, anytime, in theory, using the internet. It's changing our whole concept of reality. Yeah? And we are now moving into an era where people, for home private entertainment, are watching television series or box sets. So think Game of Thrones, Breaking Bad, The Crown. These are the new Hollywoods. Yeah? And we're consuming them at home in a private space, individually, more often than communally. Remember, cinema in 1895 was a social experience. You were watching the film together. Most people now are watching screens individually, even under the same roof. That's a big change, right? So, box sets. Now, who are they made by? They're made by the same companies, or companies that have similar owners, as Hollywood. So HBO, Amazon, Netflix, right? These are the new Hollywood. This is changing broadcast television. Another reason it's changing it is because we watch it subscription, we pay a subscription, and we watch it when we want to watch it, because the old style of broadcast television is that we all watch it at the same time. And it has the same effect on us at the same time. But now we choose when we want to watch it. So apparently that gives us more freedom, doesn't it? Yeah. So we're going to have 4 weeks at the end of the course, weeks 20 to 24, on the internet. So I'm not going to say anything else about it now. But I want to give you one last example of a box set TV series called Black Mirror, that's made by Netflix. And the reason I want to show you this, you'll probably guess if you already know, is because it's about the future of media. Yeah? It's about the future of media. It's a kind of apocalyptic nightmare scenario, but it's actually coming true. And the clip I'm going to show you, Chinese friends, you can tell me if it's true. According to my Chinese friends, they say this is actually happening in China already. Right? The clip I'm about to show you.
This is the rating thing,
It's called Nosedive.
right?
Yeah,
There's
that's
that. I saw that video.
And so let's just watch this and just think about, I mean, for me, Black Mirror is amazing. It's very clever, it's very interesting. And so if we're too black and white, if we're too dogmatic, we just say, oh, reality TV commercial, box set commercial, don't watch it, only watch clever things. No, there's clever things in this is the thing, this is the contradiction. Clever things in commercial television too. And Black Mirror is one of them. The guy that makes Black Mirror, that writes it, yeah, is, guess what he studied at university?
Media?
Media. And he hated it.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah, sure, of course you can.
About Black Mirror. Don't you think he's in trouble though for what he's showing?
Ah, tell us more.
Because he really shows what's going on right now in his own little way, but everyone's watching.
I think that's a very, very good point. Very interesting and thoughtful point. And he's been asked this. Brooker, isn't it, his surname? What's his first name? Can't remember. Anyway, he's been asked this in an interview. Do you think, he says, what I'm doing is just trying to warn people. This is what could happen. But as you quite rightly said, when everybody's watching it, it's actually going to be constructing reality, not just warning about reality. So that's the power of media there. Young people, young teenage minds are going to watch it and copy it, in the same way that young people watch Trump and copy him. Right? How many of you have seen Black Mirror? Okay, just under half. All right. Oh, I could definitely do subtitles. Let me just get them for you. This is the last word that I'm going to teach you in this lecture today, but it's really important compared to the other ones that I've also taught you. What's happening with social media, and what this is talking about, is narcissism. Everybody is more concerned with what they look like in the mirror than social reality. And social media is promoting that. The British government is now starting to publish guidelines for parents to basically guide children, because children are being so corrupted by social media. It's making them into such antisocial, alienated individuals. Right? So it's a big social problem. I should know, I've got children. I love them. Very clever piece of drama this is. Maybe me filming this lecture is narcissistic, but it's not just me in it. It's for educational purposes.
Sorry, guys.
That's my children. That's what they do now, right? It's like, Dad, we're in our own world. You know, get out of here. Yeah?
Stay here.
Gaming.
Not an option, Ryan. Lisa's up for a week.
Hey, I'm thinking of you. I got somewhere to go. Nate's roommate took a job in Phoenix, so I get his place.
Okay.
Now's the slow poke.
I'm seeing some places over lunch. Catch you later.
Sorry, that was my sister. Yeah, I bet you'd love to. Jasmine tea. And that's one brush swing. You want a cookie with that? On the house.
Sounds awesome.
Awesome.
See you tomorrow.